July 13th, the Friday, the July 13th, 1951. I first came out to Montreal in 1967. I hitchhiked out from Calgary, and it was a great experience. I only stayed about 3 weeks, I think, at that time, and then I went back and did my last year in high school. But by then I knew that I was going to come back to Montreal, and I wanted to come back and live in Montreal, not to study in Montreal, but to really get a job, a real job, live in a rooming house and learn French. The 60s was a period of social change, social transformation. And I think that, when I looked to the States, there was the civil rights movement, there was the anti-Vietnam War and everything like that. But I basically felt that those were American questions. And so that I turned then to, well, what are the questions that are facing Canada? And then, of course, I think that it was the Quebec situation that struck me the most at that time. This idea of a society that is a kind of an experiment in North America. I think I got really excited about that, and how it could exist in French, how it could you can create in French, dream in French, and so on. And so I became less worried about saving Canada, if you like, and more interested in becoming part of what was going on in Quebec. One of the things that I really appreciate about Montreal and about Quebec in general is that you feel that there is a discussion, a society-wide discussion about the type of place, the type of life that people want to lead as a collective entity. And so there's all kinds of debates about what kind of history should we be learning, how are we going to organize things, and what are the ways of keeping in touch with our roots but growing in a modern context, and so on. Whereas I found that in Edmonton or Calgary, that these questions are basically academic questions. These are questions that people in universities are asking, but you don't get the feeling that it's something that interests the population as a whole. And whereas I do think that you do feel that in Quebec, that people that aren't intellectuals, that aren't academics, are really feel very strongly about decisions that will affect the society that they live in. I came then in '68 to live full-time, and I got a job at Consolidated Bathurst, a paper company, just working in the office. And I lived in a rooming house in Eastern Montreal, trying to learn French that way. And I started taking French courses in the evening. But after a year of that, I realized that I didn't want to kind of spend all my life working in an office. And I wanted to go to university, but I felt that if I went to Sir George, or if I went to McGill at that time, I would make a kind of a circle of friends, English friends, and that then I would never really be able to make that jump into living in French. And that was something I really, really wanted to do. And by the time I finished my bachelor's degree at Carleton, I could speak enough French to be able to study at the University of Montreal. And there I registered, I guess you could say, for my master's in sociology at the University of Montreal. Many times people say, oh, you must be a francophile or something like that. And I would say, really, I don't feel like a francophile. It's not the French language that really moves me. It's Quebec society, this idea of, it's this adventure of trying to create a society that can work in French. And, it could have been another language. It would have been just as interesting to me as that. One thing that I really think is important is that the life of Quebec should be in French, and the public space. And of course, when you're in private spaces, any language is great. For me, the question of rights, English rights and so on, I don't even think about that. If I didn't have children, but if I'd had children, I wouldn't have been fighting for rights for them to go to English school. I would have sent them to French school. And when I go through the health system, everything is in French. And I'm happy to live a life like that. Certainly, there's a part of me, a very great part of me, that would support an independent Quebec. But I would like it in a way. This is the thing. My dream would be that it would be an independent Quebec that would be voted by 80% of the population, and that Canada would be in agreement, not trying to stir up some kind of controversy that would maybe make us able to have 50.1% of the votes. And I think that a lot of people would be very happy to live in an independent Quebec if there was that consensus, that it could be the result of a consensus. So we're not there. That's true. We're not there, and that's why it probably won't happen. I don't feel like I came from Alberta. I feel like I came from white Anglo-Saxon Protestant heritage. And that it could have been in Alberta, it could have been in Ontario, it could have been in British Columbia. And that my heritage isn't that related to a territory. It's related to a tradition, a culture, but that's where I come from. That's where I come from, more than Alberta, I would say. There's a real difference between a situation like mine and a situation of somebody that's born here. You know, I have actually two sisters that were born in Montreal, and they have both left Quebec. And in many ways, I think there are things that are related specifically to them, but I know that they also feel that they were forced in many ways to leave Montreal, that they dreamed perhaps when they were young that they would be something that was be able to take on interesting positions and everything in Quebec society, and then they felt really that society didn't belong to them, or that they didn't belong to that society. Part of belonging is to accept the society as it is and to work with that society, and the other part is to feel that you are accepted and that you are part of that. Not that everybody will agree with you, not that everybody will like everything about you, but that they recognize that you are part of that. But, you know, it's an infinite question. And in one sense, I could still say, well, I'm never quite sure whether you belong and so on. But on the whole, I feel very comfortable about the place that I occupy in Quebec society now.